What celebrities have you encountered that were either really nice or really horrible? I once served Flava Flav. He made a huge deal about having to sit somewhere private because he didn't want any attention. When it came to pay his bill, he handed me a prepaid Visa that did not have enough money on it. I met Vin Diesel at a truck stop diner when I was a kid. It was like 4 in the morning and me, my grandpa and Vin and his friend were the only ones in the diner, and we ended up sat at the table next to them. Vin and a friend were getting ready to go on some fishing trip, which was made obvious by the clothes they were wearing. My grandpa struck up a conversation about fishing with him, completely oblivious to who he was. He was a really nice guy and apparently knew a great deal about fishing techniques. I was a bit geeked out and didn't say much or contribute to the conversation, but I spent the next hour of our road trip explaining to my grandpa who Vin Diesel was and why it was a huge deal we just met him. I bet for Vin it was probably refreshing to have a casual conversation with someone about a personal hobby that didn't center around his celebrity status. I met a few celebs working as an event photographer for fundraisers from time to time. Chevy Chase, well, the stories are true. He was a huge jerk. Jamie Lee Curtis was one of the sweetest people I've ever met, bar none, and easily the nicest celeb I met working the camera. Very considerate and thoughtful person. She kept checking with us to see if she could do anything for us, or if we needed any more shots she could help with. Great sense of humor too. Jamie Lee Curtis seems to do a good job remembering her extras. They did a bit on James Corden's show and she picked out the lady that did a scene with her several years ago. I served Daniel Radcliffe his dessert at an event and tripped and spilled some of it on him, probably due to seeing that I was serving Daniel Radcliffe, and he stood up and started apologizing profusely to me. Was very sweet and asking if I was okay. The correct British response. I like how fame never seemed to give him a big head. Went with my parents to a function for some charity group and we shared a table with Ice-T. Super nice guy, down to earth, and not high on himself. He has a mouth on him, but when he found out my dad is a retired preacher, never heard a bad word again the rest of the night. I ended up talking music and how he goes from rap to metal. Man is cool and knows his SHT about the metal and punk scene. My husband and I were wandering around Philly a few years ago, and Don Cheadle was walking toward us. We both stopped and turned as we watched him go by. After he passed us, he turned around with a big smile and waved/winked. I just thought that was pretty cool. Met Dave Chappelle a few years back. Long story short, a friend of a friend got me and 2 friends into an after party. We were sitting at the bar when his manager offered us some shots. We talked with his manager for a while. Then Dave sat down near us. Dave was kind of sitting by himself and he looks over at us and goes, "What's going on, fellas?" And we talked to him for about an hour. We thanked him for coming to our town, talked about music, sports, all kinds of stuff. Super cool dude. One of my favorite memories. Dude. To cement that Dave is a cool SNF, my friends and I were at his Chicago show when he was supposed to film a special for HBO, and it was on my actual birthday. The venue was pretty intimate and only had a few chairs surrounding the stage with everyone else standing. We got there early enough to be one of the first row standing. Right after the opening act he came out and immediately noticed us and asked if we were all Filipinos. Well, he definitely guessed right. He started talking about how we are his family and went right into the details about his family, the food, culture and his own family. Like having a humorous conversation during his set. Pretty surreal. Anyways, after a killer show, everyone was filtering out when one of the producers stopped us and asked if we can be in some of the B-roll footage along with Cat Williams, since he was also there checking out the show. Of course, we agreed and sat next to him. As soon as it was over, Dave was on stage smoking a joint, and I told him it was my birthday that night. He asked what my name is. I said, Amur Waimoy. He then grabbed the microphone, and with everyone else still around he said, "Today's Amur Waimoy's birthday, and I'm buying shots for everyone." Got to do a shot with him. One of the best random birthday moments ever. When I was a teenager, I met Neil Armstrong at a retirement ceremony that my dad brought me to. It was at a museum, and it was a private event. There was time for everyone to wander the museum, and my dad saw Mr. Armstrong looking at one of the planes that my dad helped design. Nobody else around. They struck up a conversation and Neil asked me questions about what I was studying and how I felt about the work my dad did. My dad worked on classified planes when I was much younger. He seemed like such a gentle guy to me. A bunch of other men suddenly joined us and started asking him for autographs, which he declined. It seemed to snap him out of his happy mood, and he kind of shut down and walked away. At that time I thought he was a bit of a jerk for not saying goodbye or anything, but I recently read about the hard time he had with fame, and I guess it makes sense. Genuinely amazing that you got to meet him, and one-to-one, with your dad, at that. He'll always be a one of a kind for what he achieved, so you should feel very lucky to have met him. Thanks. My dad was thinking the whole time I should ask for an autograph, but he realized after the crowd showed up that the best you would have gotten from him was a conversation, and my dad got that. Nothing to put on your mantle, but a special moment still. Samuel L. Jackson at the Calgary Stampede in Canada. He was super nice. My family went up for it because my uncle is part of the committee that organizes the Stampede every year, and he got us VIP seating. I was a kid at the time, and I was like, does your wallet really say OBAMF? He laughed and said he left that one at home. Of course, when I told the story at school I told everyone his wallet did in fact say that. My mom and sister met The Rock when he was still a wrestler. They had a couple car seats and tons of bags, having a hell of a time getting off the plane, and people were waiting, and then this massive guy offered to carry some things for them, and they happily took the help. He grabbed some bags and held the baby carrier with my niece in it and helped them off the plane and left. After, people kept going up to them asking how they knew The Rock, and they were very confused until someone explained who he was. Everything I ever hear about him, he's super cool. He did a rap from Moana with some dude interviewing him for the guy's kids, because the guy's kids were massive Moana fans. I reckon he's so nice that on the airplane, I bet you, he let the person next to him have the armrest. He probably thought, this isn't The Rock's elbow room, this is the people's elbow room. So I have a fun Paul Rudd story. I worked at CVS at the time, and my manager had just eliminated smoke breaks, so I'm on edge and going nuts. Paul Rudd walks in and sees me. For reference, I'm generally disheveled in appearance. I had a wizard beard braided down almost to my nuts, and I had worked overnight unloading the truck before popping on register. He looks at me and just goes, rough night. I laughed, nodded. I slept at my coffee, which was more or less empty at this point. My boss comes out of the office to yell at me about something, and Paul drops what he's doing, runs to my counter, and rings the little bell to interrupt the boss. I run over, and he has a single butterfinger on the counter. I ring him out, and he laughs. He says, how long you been here? Truthfully, I told him 10 hours. I sputter something about loving him in fundamentals of caring. He looks at my boss and says, the best thing ever. I need my name to help me to my car with my purchase. My back hurts. Mind taking over for him? So I go outside. He bums a cigarette off me and bought me coffee, then wouldn't let me inside until I finished a whole cigarette and half my coffee. Boss came out to bitch. He laughs and says I still need his help loading my car. Honestly, it's actually probably the single best customer moment I've ever had in my time in retail. Dude's goddamn awesome. Used to do delivery runs for a catering company, and we would get a lot of celebrities at the airport that ordered from us. Johnny Depp was the only one I ever saw face to face. Dude pulled a wadded up bill from his pocket and tossed it at me. I thought it was cool I got a tip directly from him at all, but once I had it all unwadded, it was $100 bill. I met Miss Dolly Parton when I was just a wee kid in Illinois. I've described it as being like meeting the sun. She was just so happy and warm and wonderful, and she was the first person I'd met in real life with a southern accent. I had a chance to work with Whitney Houston for 8 days on a film set. I was working as an extra. She was nice, kind and personable. Her beauty was more striking in person. She was very professional. She did not miss a mark or a cue. Everybody on the set cried when she sang. Whitney Houston was very nice to me and complimentary. She spoke sweetly and in a motherly tone when she greeted people. I can still remember her friendly greetings when she arrived on set every day. That was one of the best experiences of my life and best experiences working on a film set. I learned a lot from her about professionalism on a film set. I also saw how hard she worked. She was there 12 hours a day and on point every minute. I watched how she interacted with the director, other actors and crew. She was even encouraging to other actors and performers in the film, even the extras. It was heartbreaking when she passed. I still have the dress that I wore in that film. She admired and complimented me about the dress. An actor/musician I know was booked to perform at the event Whitney Houston was to be at the day she passed. He was also staying at the same hotel. He called me and told me she was gone. Then he started to cry. Hey lovely people, like and subscribe if you want to see more.